every day I wake up and think about the most infamous crime in gaming. And that is the fact that people really think that Mario Kart Super Circuit is one of the worst Mario games ever. And while I hope that's an over-exaggeration on their part, it does beg the question of why. Well, I already know one reason why that is, but it really doesn't address the overall quality of the game and the full story. Which is why I'm here today. Do me a favor and quit looking at the upload date. I am dead serious. So here's your timestamps, and with that, we're gonna stop stalling and boost our way into this wacky feat that is trying to review a fun party game. Ladies and gentlemen, get this. Mario Kart Super Circuit's core gameplay loop, as you'd expect, is pretty neat, although it is a tough interpretation of the formula. As a game following up on Mario Kart Super and 64, the gameplay and its controls are incredibly simple. Accelerate, brake, hop, drift, and items with a sheer lack of gimmicks attached, which of course fits perfectly in line as what the last two games previously were. But somehow, the controls themselves feel a little more janky, which isn't really a bad thing, it just gives more of an obvious learning curve to just simply moving that the other games really kinda lacked. While a lot of it comes down to basic movements like more optimal turning, hopping over bumps on the road, or over pits in the ground, there's just some neat sights like being able to pull yourself out of the water before Lakitu can, and of course the coin system that completely punishes you if you let it fall to zero. But who really cares? With the basics out of the way, let's get to the other basics! You gotta drive across the finish line 3 to 5 times to win each race, depending on the circumstances. But of course you knew this already, I hope. It's just that magic formula that always hooks you in and tests your abilities, just with a bit more demanded performance because both the more janky controls and the GBA map design. But enough of that, let's do the actual video now. You know, actually criticizing the game. Let's go! Items have always been one of the main focal points of Mario Kart, and Super Circuit adds to the pot by adding 0 items. Awesome! Meaning that the game's item roster is a little more of the same, featuring 5 variants of shells, 2 mushroom variants, a star, lightning, banana, and of course, sadly, Boo. At first, the item roster looks a bit inoffensive, but it gets funny real quick. Firstly, the ability to get items while carrying one behind you is a little sweaty and totally not a problem, but it actually is. But let's be real, it's still a problem that in a bunch of other games. Your ability to simply outrun the blue shell if you keep top speed is hilarious and a actual good skill check, unlike how with it and the red shell where you can throw them backwards and they will sit there and wait to hit someone. Ultimately, these are funny quirks in the game, but pretty annoying in terms of actually bouncing the item sandbox. When of course these red shells specifically can be used for first place to take to the offense with minimal effort. To be fair, a lot of the weird items first can get are just, why? Boo, I'm looking at you. Meaning it's time to look at the game modes in a little bit more depth. Not that there's much depth to it anyways. As always, the game has a Grand Prix mode, and just like Mario Kart 64, it's 4 tracks in a row and you earn points to win it all. The classic you know and love, without being needlessly bloated. Super, 5 maps, why? Again, I just mentioned Mario Kart 64, and that's because essentially copy and paste it. And this is with 3 retries that can cover for your skill issue when playing through the mode. Which of course is nice because needing to completely reset from one mistake is never fun. Yo, is that a Fire Emblem reference? Although what's not fun, or is, depending on who you ask, is the scoring system. Instead of simple letter ranks, we have those and multiple stars all based on a hidden score system, which of course comes from your performance. Did you use a star? You lose points. Have you used any retries? Lose points. Did you play as Yoshi? No bonus points. Overall, the end score doesn't really matter, it just provides those extra reasons for you to go back if that's something you're actually interested in. Our next game mode is Free Run. Get this, you get to choose what maps to play and how many laps as well, instead of being forced into 3 laps for GBA maps and 5 maps for the SNES maps. Oh yeah, and then of course items and coins can be disabled as well, just in case you wanna, I don't know, practice the maps or something, which of course makes this game mode just a fun little distraction if you just want to play on 1 or 2 particular maps. And for solo content, we finally reached time trials. 3-lap speedrun. It's the same thing that it's always been and will be. The mode itself tracks your best lap and top 5 times, and all around is pretty good. Although being limited to 10 ghosts is kinda dumb, but hey, the game mode is awesome. Triple shrooms, and we get to see why GBA Rainbow Road has peak gameplay? Sign me me up, and as multiplayer is concerned, being on the GBA is hurting its convenience quite a bit. It doesn't help that the Wii U and DS don't get the benefit of multiplayer at all, and the Switch? Okay, maybe online multiplayer is a blessing. Why multiplayer struggles in this game should be quite obvious. It's only one person per Game Boy Advance. It's a fun experience if you can get in, but getting into it's the hard part. But feature-wise, you can race against your friends, or you can just try indulging in the game's battle mode. Balloon battle, by the way. Well, look at that! A good selection of content! On the surface level, it's everything you've ever wanted. But of course, every game has its weak points. What some would consider to be the most important part of the game is the characters, for some reason, and the game's tracks. You know, the obvious important thing. So let's take a quick gander on the game's two real issues, starting with the characters. A roster of 8 that you'll see in every single game, except Super. And in fact, this is the same crew of characters from Mario Kart 64. And while it's a limited roster, that's not the issue here. The issue is that the characters, of course, have stats, like in 64, but not in a more fun way than like some of the more recent games are. It's limited into a way where there's 2 stats, weight and speed. Weight essentially serves as a hindrance, as sure, you can knock people out of the way easier and technically have a higher top speed, but it comes with a nasty acceleration trade-off that would be forgivable if turning did not become 80 trillion times more difficult. Of course, making your top speed impossible to reach. Unless you're a god gamer, of course. With some dirt handling abilities, it makes the more weighty characters seem like a general liability in ways that a normal tier list could hardly influence. And if it wasn't for the bonus score you would get for playing the heavies in GP mode, you'd really never have a reason to handicap yourself this badly. But of course, as I'm talking about all this, we're looking at it in terms of practicality. Skill issue indeed. Meaning, hey look, it's time to suck off the maps and crucify the ones that offend my senses. But before we get there, did you know this game has a whole 40 tracks? 20 new ones, and all 20 that managed to appear in Super Mario Kart. Now, before I do a quick overview of all the course's quality, we have to first unlock some of the stages. Starting the game off, Mushroom Flower, Lightning, and Star Cups are all unlocked, and Special, of course, has to be unlocked in a very trivial manner. That's not the issue, though. That, of course, would be the SNES maps, which requires you to collect a few coins on a run of a cup, but only after you've beaten the cup already, requiring you to run through the GBA cups twice. Which, if that wasn't fine and dandy, you have to re-unlock all the maps again for each CC ran, so running each cup 6 times. It's not that bad, as the GBA tracks on average are pretty good, but repeating content obviously is not the most thrilling prospect. And speaking of unlocks, the time trials for the SNES tracks and the GBA Special Cup have to be unlocked, from beating their respective cups on 150cc, which is honestly kinda fine, meaning it's now track time. On average, the GBA tracks are pretty good. Plenty of highlights, a couple of boring maps that are either bland or just have a lack of thrill, and the Bowser's Castle stages, which just serve as proof that extremely tight turns will never be okay in a game that has this kind of turning, which is why it works in games like Mario Kart Wii and DS. Although, to specify some highlights, Sky Garden is a certified classic. Sunset Wilds, ladies and gentlemen, is the greatest map of all time, with crazy thrills and just being a damn good test of skill. Why is this not in Mario Kart 8 yet? Nintendo, I am begging you. Snowland just being the funny map with all of its coins on 2 paths for some reason, and what I would argue is the best Rainbow Road in the series. A sketchy map with high risk and high reward with a ludicrous amount of shortcuts. Needless to say, overall lineup on average is not bad, and that's because the game is built better. Although speaking of better, some of the SNES tracks are actually more bearable this time around, having some of their hazards actually removed. No, that does not include the vanilla lakes. They are still complete and utter disasters. But still, overall, the SNES tracks on average still suffer from noticeable quality control issues. A few goods and the rest. And that's ignoring the other minor optimizations like extra coins on the track or a better item box system. Finishing out the track discussion, I just want to focus on the GBA maps in regards to their remakes. No, not their upscales with small differences that we would see in the next few games to follow. I'm looking at their full-blown remakes from Mario Kart 8 in particular. As it's no surprise, these maps get the most creative freedom when it comes comes to remakes, and because of that, a lot of the sauce gets lost in translation. After all, if you've played the game on a 150cc ever, it's kinda hard to stay on the roads due to how tight the maps are. Again, adding to that steep learning curve. And those simple details are addressed the most through the much wider tracks, something that the SNES tracks also see. But unlike the SNES tracks, massively noticeable layout changes also exist. Ribbon Road and Sky Garden are the two most obvious highlights here, a whole section just not having its boost panels, or some of the silly jumps you can do really just stand out. Although let's be real, there's like a lot of Sky Garden that's just gone. Riverside Park and Cheeseland are just generally a lot better, both visually and in terms of the track, elevation, and the hazards. Hey, Riverside Park, they have patooies! Yes! But ladies and gentlemen, no map feels as unrecognizable as Snowland, most of which is a massive visual overhaul, general just track changes like whatever is going on here in the middle of the track, and pretty much anything going on with the item boxes. This is not an argument about the quality of the remakes, just the more interesting observations of what happens through one just considering how not the same it is, pretty much making the more intended experience more of a treasure or something. Regardless, it gives a reason to actually come back to the original in ways that other games could only hope, while not being a massive chase to find most of the tracks through other games, mostly in their intended not remake form, just with minor changes. So let's move on to whatever lies next for us. Okay, keeping this short, the music, as you would expect, is pretty neat. Nothing groundbreaking, but still an enjoyable experience. Yeah, this is not what you care about, as that would be the graphics. Oh boy, the graphics are something. The menus themselves are fine. It's not bad or anything, but of course that is nothing in comparison to what the actual gameplay has in store visually. While the backdrops themselves do look pretty nice, the game slacks immensely through lacking in visual scale. You know, like inclines, cliffs, and such. And of course, being an obvious hardware issue. But in terms of what actually is there, visually, the actual roads, hazards, and whatnot, they end up looking pretty problematic, with a mixture of the camera and, more importantly, you just simply moving. The ground looks not thrilling, all of which is made worse on higher CCs, of course speeding up how fast everything moves. Just a potential headache to make planning your movements a little bit harder. But to be fair, it's not a new issue. And considering the pixelated environments, it's just an inevitability. And before we wrap this section up, we gotta do a quick story analysis. Surprise, there isn't one. I think it's time to bring this review to a close. Honestly, I shouldn't need to state the obvious here, but I'll say it anyways. Mario Kart Super Circuit is a good game. A good GBA adaptation to a series that thrives on consoles and somehow managed to not be completely mid and forgettable. The game ended up being a fun iteration with a much more demanding skill level. Skill issue indeed, but that's the point of mastering the game. It just feels so much more rewarding. And if you remember the intro I did, I hid a reason as to why people would dislike the game. And that's just a lack of originality. It didn't do anything new or flashy, but here's the thing, innovation means nothing to the overall game's quality. All it does is provide you something to say, hey, that's cool, that's the game's identity. But getting more to the point here, I'll be dropping a 3-star rank on the game. And yes, you should consider playing it. What's funny is, excluding Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario Kart, all the other games would very likely share these exact same rankings. Ultimately, I really don't have much else to say, other than, do you just see this disgusting abomination of a GBA? Let's just say this game may have involved this thing's execution. No, it wasn't my fault. Don't be ridiculous. And while I had 2 other skits to potentially end this video on, I think we'll just leave it here to prevent a total derailment. So as usual, drop kick the subscribe button, throw a shell at the like button, and I'll see you at another time. Oh, and don't expect me to review any other Mario Kart games. And also, Nintendo, please add Sunset Wilds to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the only thing I will ever ask for. Okay, thanks.